I'm Teresa Khalil, a writer and a documentary filmmaker, and this is my story with hijab. The year 1979, Saudi Arabia. I just turned 6 years old, and as I began to perceive the world around me, I realized that life is black and white. The streets, the supermarkets, the doctor's clinic, all is black and white. Women are dressed in black, and men are mostly dressed in white. But suddenly, and as a child who doesn't have matters in my own hands, I found myself in a taxi, coming out of Cairo's airport, and I found me stuck to the window of the taxi, staring at the streets in denial of believing that I'm not dreaming. As people walking in the streets were dressed in color, red, green, blue. Not only that, but a single person can be dressed in multicolor. I also saw a fountain, and I looked at my mother saying, "What a beautiful scenery!" And my mother kissed me, which was as shocking as the colorful streets, because my mother was from a conservative family and we were not used to touching, kissing, or hugging. And maybe that's why I still remember this event till now. The colorful streets, the fountain, my mother's kiss. I was always reminding my mother of that moment, saying, "Do you remember, Mama, when you kissed me in the taxi?" And she says, "I was happy to see you growing and becoming more conscious and appreciative of beauty around you." Our visit to Cairo in Egypt was very short, and I went back to my life in Saudi Arabia and totally forgot Cairo and the streets of Cairo. The school's uniform was maxi, with long sleeves, and I liked it a lot as it was very comfortable. By moving to the preparatory stage, or grade 7, it became obligatory for me to wear abaya. I can't describe how happy and excited I was, as this means that I'm becoming a young lady, and I will be treated like a woman. I was so excited that finally I will have my own abaya, and I will not need to borrow my mother's abaya to walk in it around the apartment. And so they bought me my own abaya, and I selected the veil that covers the face to have golden embroidery at the edges. I was too excited to wait for school to open that I was wearing my abaya at home, practicing all methods of dressing it. Once I put my arms through the sleeves, another time I wrap it around my body, or I wrap the veil around my head few times, and so on. The schools opened, and I lived the happiness of abaya. But my happiness didn't last long, as me being still a child and doesn't have matters in my own hands, suddenly I found myself in a school in Cairo. The school was Maria Auxiliat Ricci, the sister of Don Bosco schools, which I made a video about before on this channel, and why these schools are unique. 1986, Maria Auxiliat Ricci Girls' School. The students here, not only that they don't wear abaya, but the school's uniform is a white shirt which can be short sleeve and a blue dress that has to be by the knee. And if it gets below the knee, it means that this girl is not classy. So I was forced for the first time in my life to show my knees. My knees that were always hidden. The feeling of the air touching my knees was not comfortable, but I wanted to fit in and feel home in my new society. What made it even more tough is that this was my teenaging stage, where I started to have very dense hair in my legs, and I had to deal with it somehow before people noticed that my legs doesn't differ much from any male's legs. It wasn't only me who was struggling, but many other girls were also burdened by removing their legs' hair for the sake of wearing the short uniform. Anyway, I began to feel that my efforts didn't go in vain, and I started to feel that I belong like any other girl who was born and raised in Egypt. But suddenly, I was moved to a totally different school. Again. 1989. This time I moved to a governmental Egyptian school, Al-Shahid Yusuf al-Sibai. The change wasn't huge this time, but still there were differences between this school, Maria Auxilia, and the Saudi school. The uniform was a white shirt with long sleeves, a blue skirt under the knee, and above the ankle. It can't be shorter or longer. And also there was a tie. As it was the teenaging stage, the cool girls who wanted to rebel opened the first button of the shirt and untied the tie. This time it didn't take me long to fit in. My first year of secondary school or grade 10 was the best year ever. I now have close friends. I got used to the school's uniform and the uniform got used to me. Sometimes I rebel myself and untie the tie or open the first button of my shirt. I became fluent in the Egyptian dialect after I learned the hard way by making mistakes and my colleagues correct me after laughing at my funny mistakes. I can now understand their jokes and make them laugh sometimes. I began to feel home, as if I belonged here since ever. But suddenly, Iman entered the class crying. To be honest, Iman was a bit weird. She didn't seem to be one of us. Her uniform was different. She was wearing a heavy long dress covering her body from the neck to the ankle, with long sleeves, although this wasn't the school's uniform. Iman entered the classroom crying, and all the girls gathered around her, asking, "What is it, Iman? What's wrong?" She said, "My father wants me to wear hijab and get married." The girls tried to comfort her. "Iman, can't you discuss this with him? Can't you talk him out of it?" But it seems that Iman knew her father very well, so she was only responding with tears. To be honest, Iman wasn't my friend and I didn't care about her much. Few days later, Iman came to the school with a white scarf wrapped around her head and neck. As for me, I had only a feeling of empathy for her, because I know how does it feel to be different, chased by people's staring eyes, and Iman was for sure different, with her weird costume and her complicated story. Quickly, I forgot about Iman and I went back to enjoying my new life, in which I feel fully integrated and finally a sense of belonging is settling inside me. After 2 weeks, Iman stopped coming to school and I totally forgot her. Few days later, and in the midst of my joy and happiness with my new life, suddenly I looked at Aitan, my colleague who shares the same desk with me, to see her wearing a white scarf on her head. I asked, "What is this, Aitan? Are you also going to get married?" And Aitan replied, "No, Teresa, I'm just wearing a hijab." Within 2 to 3 weeks, tens of students began to cover their hair. I couldn't get it, as it is the first time in my life I witnessed change without going anywhere. I didn't travel, I didn't change my school. Bit by bit, I started to feel that I need to do something to get back my sense of belonging and the safety of integration. How can I look like the people around me when this time they don't look like each other? When I reached 3rd secondary or grade 12 in 1990, more than half the class were wearing hijab, and the hair cover that was white began to change. The Egyptian spirit which I witnessed from the taxi's window when I was 6 began to reflect on the hijab, so you could see a red hijab, a green, a blue, or with flowers or geometrical designs. And I remember that I was so puzzled at that time that I wrote a poem about my feelings back then that begins with, "Why, my dear Egypt, I see your head cover filled with patterns." And I joined Faculty of Engineering while still trying to understand and belong. The lecture hall was filled with students, male and female, but they sat in a division that was astonishing for me, as no one divided them that way, and there was no rule or law that forced them to divide. There were 3 or 4 girls wearing niqab, which is similar to the Saudi abaya but doesn't cover the eyes. Then there were 7 to 10 girls sitting beside each other wearing khimar, which covers the woman's body from the head to the hips, showing the face and the hands. Beside them there were girls with hijab, and the hijab could be long, that it covers the chest or the belly, or just cover the shoulders and the neck, and sometimes doesn't cover the neck. And beside them there were Muslim girls who doesn't cover the hair, also sitting together. There were the Christian minority, where you see Orthodox girls sitting together beside each other, and beside them 1 or 2 Catholics sitting together, and then 1 or 2 Protestants. Then you can find the guys. They were also divided, guys with long beard, as usually the beard represents the religious belief group, as Ikhwan or Salafi. And beside them there were the cool guys who are not so religious or strict. While I was watching the lecture's whole division, I couldn't do anything but to surrender and quit my pursuit to belong and to be like everyone else. I sat on the observer seat, and I guess I'm still sitting on it until now, thinking, watching, analyzing. But what I got out of this long story and rich experience is that I became a big fan of scarves. It became my weakness point, in addition to the 4 weakness points I shared on my Fukaira channel in another video, which is English subtitled. The scarf became part of who I am. I wear it on my head, on my shoulder, on my waist. Me and the scarf became inseparable in summer or in winter. In 2008. I was living and working in Sharm el-Sheikh, a touristic city in Egypt by the Red Sea, known for being more open and less conservative, compared to Cairo or the rest of Egypt. I was coming back from a short holiday in Cairo by bus, and once the bus arrived in Sharm, and as I was dragging my bag on the way to leave the station, a man waiting in the bus station flooded me with the most terrible curse words and insults. As my reactions are always slow, I froze, and I didn't understand why he was talking to me that way. As I listened more to what he was saying, while walking away, I discovered that he made a script in his head. He judged me and executed the punishment immediately. It turned out that when he saw me wearing a scarf on my shoulder, he thought that I was wearing hijab in Cairo. And once I arrived in Sharm, as it is a more liberal city, I removed the hijab and put it on my shoulder to reveal my hair. For a moment, I thought of going to him to explain that no, this is not what happened. I wasn't wearing hijab at all. But as he looked scary and very angry, in addition to his vulgar vocabulary, I thought our conversation may not be a good idea. But later on, as I began to think about it and what happened, I thought, what if I was wearing a hijab and I removed it? Why would this make him angry? This was my story with hijab. I'm curious to know your stories, so please share them in the comments below. If you would like to receive a monthly letter from me for a healthy, calm, and conscious life, you can go to my website and register your email. Connecting with me by voice or receiving free products from my shop are some of the awards you can get by supporting me on Patreon or join. More information in the description box. And see you in a coming video.